Welcome back. So I put a little bit more work into this fish since the last time you saw it. The important thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is you don't want gaps in your artwork. So if all of your shapes are not touching, we'll zoom in a little bit, make sure that they are. You don't want any weird little white creases or even worse, black creases. Now there's a gap here, but that's going to be the fish's eye. I do see a little sliver right here, so I'd want to go in there and add a couple points here or move things around so they at least overlap, but I think it's better that you create new shapes. In spirit of just kind of speeding this up, I will overlap it. One thing to keep in mind, it's been a while since we've been in Illustrator. Selection tool will move the whole shape. Direct select, the white arrow will move an anchor point. So in this case, I just need to move an anchor point over a bit. White arrow, click, hold, and drag. And there's filled that gap up. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So no gaps. The other thing to keep in mind, you don't want strokes. You can see right over here, I've got a straight fill, no strokes. In fact, there's no strokes on anything. I'm not saying that you can't use strokes. Be my guest. It's just the majority of these things look the best when there are no strokes. So be warned. All right, I'll zoom out a little bit. Since we're going to be creating 3 alternate color schemes, I think it makes sense to just lay down flats. And by flats, I mean, let me turn off the vectors here. This fish is primarily orange and blue. Now I might have a couple different shades of orange and blue, but I think I could get by with just really saying, all right, all the orange is just one flat orange and all the blue is just one flat blue. You guys should know how to do fills by now. To give you a sense of where we're going, I worked ahead a little bit, and this is what I would like to work up to in this video. Alright, so now that I've got a consistent flat laid down here, it's time to define a light source and kind of show mass. And we're going to do this through shadows and highlights. Now if you got one cohesive flat, like all this orange is the same orange and all this blue is the same blue, then a really cool tool that's going to speed things up immensely is going to be your color guides. I don't know how many people are using these, but it's basically if you pick a particular color, say this orange, it will give you shades and tints. Here it is right here. It kind of looks like a shades and tints wheel. It's called Color Guide. And I'm going to be using this a lot, so I'm just going to go ahead and click, hold, and drag and tear this out. So here's how this works. If you specify a color, let's start with these orange. Click on this orange, you'll see that it puts the orange up into focus. Now it doesn't do anything to the shades and tints until you actually double click it. So as soon as you do, you can see that that particular hue sits right in the middle. And to the left, I get shades where it adds some black, and to the right, I get tints where it adds some white. And why this is going to be so useful is take a look at your photograph. I'm just turning the visibility of the vectors on top off for a moment. This fish, and it looks like it's set to a template, so let's turn that off. Looks like it gets lighter the farther back it goes. There's some reds in there, and there's some blues creeping up into the side over the gills here, but primarily from the oranges. There's much more orangey orange here, and then it kind of tints out. So I'm going to try to replicate that, and I don't have to be photo accurate. All I'm going to do is either use my selection tool, the V tool, and start to grab some of these, and then double click, and you can see that immediately it tints it out. And I'm really not overthinking it. I'm just kind of seeing what looks cool. Maybe there's a few teeny little triangles in here that might be fun to kind of play around with. Some lights. Could I add shade? Why not? Maybe I'll come down here and see what a shade looks like. I'm really just trying to think about where the light's coming from and what that would do to my animal here. Another way that you could speed this up if you want to is instead of using the selection tool, you could click, hold, and drag and create a marquee, or what I sometimes do is use the lasso tool. The lasso tool doesn't get a lot of play in Illustrator, but the way that this works is you could just click, hold, and drag, and anything that that outline touches will be selected. And from here I could just say, all right, I want all of these to be lighter, and I want all of these to be much lighter. Maybe that's too light. It does have to connect though. You can't just draw a straight line and expect it to work. Now I don't really like the way that all of these are looking the same, so maybe I'll come in here now with the selection tool and shade a few of them up. You can see relatively quickly this thing is starting to take shape. In fact, I like this one probably more than the one that I did before. I can do the same thing with the blue. I'll grab the blue here. Now I have to put it in focus by double clicking on the color guide. Now that that's loaded, and I can say, well, that might be a little bit too blue, so I'll put some tint into that as well. Turn out the photograph to kind of see where I'm at, and that doesn't look too bad. For a down and dirty vector creature, not bad. I mean, it definitely needs some more work, but it's kind of getting there. I'm at least putting the base geometry on, and that's what's important. Now, you might be wondering, you said no strokes. Why are there a few strokes here? I wanted to show something. We didn't get into this much last year because of everything that happened, but a cool feature is what's called a blend, and these work best with strokes. So he's got gills. I say he, like I know it's a guy. There's gills here, and they're not. There's other ways to do this instead of hard shapes, so I think I'm going to give this a shot. The way that a blend works is, especially with strokes, just lines like this, you can select them all. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4 strokes selected, and you have to set it up first. It's under Object, Blend, and before you can choose Make. In fact, if it's the first time you open up Illustrator, this will be ghosted out. It won't even be an option. So you have to tell it what to do. So we'll go to Blend Options. And there's two big ones to choose from, Specified Steps or Smooth Color. Distance, I still haven't quite figured out what this would be useful for. So I'm going to do with steps, and the higher the number is, the more iterations or the more strokes will be between these two. So I'll start with 4, that sounds okay. And you'll see nothing happens. Like I said, it's a 2-step process. So let me go to Object, Blend, and now I can choose Make. And you can see that it filled in all those gaps for me. And as far as a fin goes for a fish, I mean, I think that looks pretty cool. I might do that to the other one. I might even lay it on top or behind these fins here just to give it a little bit more oomph. Okay, the last and final tutorial, I'm going to add gradients to these shapes, but before I do that, I'm going to duplicate this 3 times so I get all 4 and use the replace color feature to give alternate color schemes. So I'm a little bit further along now. I'm not done by any stretch of the imagination. I still need more modeling around here, but I did kind of flatten out this. So the torso, if that's what it's called, is starting to look a little bit more like it's round. I laid one giant flat down for this big fin. It's very generic. It's kind of a placeholder, but I just kind of want to give you a sense of what's going to happen next when you have all of your what I'd call primitive shapes, your triangles, your squares, or your octagons, or whatever laid down. But before I do that, let me show you one other cool benefit of this blend function from the last tutorial. If you select everything by doing a rubber band select or using the V tool and shift selecting, I'll do a rubber band because it's not touching. I can duplicate this by Control C, Control V, letting it paste. And this is what's known as a live effect, meaning that I can manipulate it and it will update on the fly. So if I want another set of fins over here, maybe going a different way, if I use the direct select tool, the A selection, and I grab just one of these anchor points, check out what, let's make sure I get one. Check out what happens as I move it around. You can see all the others begin to cascade and update around that. So this would be a very fast way if I had a creature that in this case does have a few gills. Or use your imagination. Maybe you've got a lot of hair on like a horse mane, or who knows. Speed your workflow up a little bit. But I don't want to get too bogged down in a blend function tutorial here. I think that we can find a lot of those at a different date, but I'll leave it like this. All right, looks good. Go ahead and move this over here. Rotate it a bit. Now it's going on top of the fish, which that's an easy fix. if I just right click and choose arrange, send to back, just like that. Now, of course, it's going underneath that, so I have to play around with some arrangement orders, but you kind of get the sense. All right, the project calls for 4 different artboards. I've got 2 extra here because I was kind of noodling around getting things ready, but I really want to duplicate my final creature once it has all of its flats laid down 3 times, and that's going to let me manipulate 3 different alternate color schemes. This is pretty easy. I'm just going to use the artboard tool. And if I select this artboard, if nothing's locked that's sitting on the artboard and I duplicate it, all of those things will duplicate with it. So the easiest way for me to do this is with the artboard tool selected to hold down the Alt key, click, hold, and drag, and it says any hidden or locked objects won't be moved. Well, there's nothing hidden or locked on the actual shapes. It's that background layer that I was tracing. That's locked down. That won't get moved. And that's not a big deal because I'm kind of done with that now anyway. So I'll just go ahead and choose OK. And check it out, a perfect duplicate. While it's still selected with the artboard tool, I'm going to hold down the Alt key again. I'm going to click, hold, and drag. Click, hold, and drag. And click, hold, and Alt key. Click, hold, and drag. Now I've arranged mine with the first one up here and the next 2 down here. It really doesn't matter, whatever works for you. The only reason I did that is because I've got these other 2 here that I don't want to delete in case I need to go back and reference them for a different tutorial. But there you go. Use your move tool. You've got 4 identical artboards with the same graphic on there. Now let's start changing some colors. The replace color feature, or edit colors as it used to be known, is all the rage on this. Very simple. So let's start with this one, and instead of maybe orange and blue, I'm going to try a red and maybe a complementary, say a green, and see what that looks like. So I'm going to zoom into this one. You could, if you wanted to, rubber band select everything. I think it's a bad idea because it's going to give you too many options. So what's better to do this would be either selecting a small portion, or better yet, if you've got a lot of the same hue, use the wand tool. The wand tool, again, like the lasso, probably doesn't get a lot of play, but I'm going to click on this orange right here with the wand tool, and it selects all neighboring oranges. And you can set the threshold here by double clicking and saying there's a tolerance of 20. I could dial that down to a lower number and it would only grab what's closer to that hue. The higher number, it would grab even more. So maybe I'll bring that down to 10. And you can see mine set to fill color. Well, that's all I've got, so make sure that yours is set to fill color too. I'll set that to 10, and now I'll grab that same orange. And so you can see a few got dropped off. All right, now that I've got a few selected, it's time to replace color. That's going to be under Edit, Edit Colors, Recolor Artwork. There's a few different ways to use this. You can replace your current color right here by double clicking. You could click, hold, and drag these sliders, or, and I'll end with this, go to Edit and use this color wheel. This one's my personal favorite, but let's go through all 3 of them just to see what they do. So we'll go back to Assign, and right now it's actually only got 1 hue selected. Make sure that you've got the Recolor Artwork checked, and let's go ahead and change that to red. We'll start by just replacing current colors. So I'm going to click on this New here, double click, and change it to more of a red. And you can see all those update. Okay. Let's use that wand again. And this time let's grab a different hue. Edit. Edit Colors. Recolor Artwork. I could do it the exact same way I did last time. Kind of play around over here. Or, if I want a little bit more precise way, I can use my color sliders. That doesn't look too bad, but if I want to add a little bit more saturation, I can just kick that up a notch. Maybe I could shade it, which I don't like. So B is brightness, so I'll bring that up. That's not too bad. Choose OK. And for the blues, I'm going to use that last value that I talked about. I'm just going to click, hold, and drag. This time I'll grab a few. Edit. Edit Colors. Recolor Artwork. And you can see that this time I grabbed 4. And I could do it the exact same way. I could go one by one and say, all right, the light ones I want to be more pink. And this one I want to be more purple. And this one and so forth. But instead of doing that, check this out. Instead of assign, go to edit. I love this color wheel. This is a lot of fun. What you can do is it shows you the color and focus. And you can literally just click, hold, and drag and say, well, I want that tail to be more in the yellow vein. And there we go. And this one also a little bit more yellow. And these blues, we'll put those towards yellow-green. And this blue will give a hint of orange. Okay. Original, modified. So you're going to want 4 totally distinct color versions. So maybe this one, the fish is green and the tail is purple, and so forth. After you're done, you'll pick the one that's the strongest, and that's the one that you'll add shadows and highlights with gradients and blend modes. And I'll add that at the very end for the final video.